I hope you've got your thinking caps on, because this chapter not only goes into all the coin theories, but old characters return and possibly some death flags for others. So let's not waste any time and get right into it. Picking up right where it ended, Kurapika's faced with the same challenge of understanding the coin's power and what their purpose is. After looking at them lined up, he agrees that they probably change after 10 days like they all assumed. But then there's the problem of too much money in circulation, which is why the coins are meant to change hands often to keep them moving and not simply growing infinitely for one person. But to prove that part, Kurapika knows they have to see the ones that were given out. Zhong's guard, 10th Tori, immediately notices this is different from the others, which is all the proof they really needed. One side is the same, but the other changed. In theory, they should change depending on who has them in their possession, so Kurapika tells Zhong to give them all out to test it. The first person he offers it to, though, is Kurapika. The thing is, Kurapika doesn't trust him right now, and having him take one could put him at risk. But Zhong has the perfect excuse of trying to kill two birds with one stone. Not only would it verify their thoughts, but Kurapika could see it himself since it would be his coin. As much as Kurapika wants to refuse, doing that would make Zhong less trusting of him, and could ruin the partnership he's trying to build. His main worry isn't what it could do to him specifically, but what it could force him to do. Considering it could be a manipulation type of Nen ability, having it on his person for a certain time can make him affected by it, and follow an order that he couldn't resist. Still, 10 days shouldn't be enough Nen build-up for him to kill someone, or himself. It's more likely to only show its true power when and if Zhong wins the succession contest. With that in mind, and considering Zhong might not become king, the risks are low for Kurapika. Once he accepts, his coin changes, as they expected, and looks just like 10th Tori's. So he hands it back to see if it shifts again, which it does. But the number doesn't go back to 10 like when Zhong had it, staying at 1. With just that, Kurapika has a better sense of what's going on with the coins. But he worries about telling Zhong in such an open space with others around. So Zhong's sure his ability can't hurt Prince Benjamin, so it's safe to go into details. But everything Zhong says is a misdirect and a hidden message. Some things that only Kurapika would be able to pick up on. By saying it shouldn't endanger the first prince, he means that Kurapika has to keep any information that could a secret. Rather than a manipulation user, Kurapika thinks Zhong's guardian beast uses conjuring. Because of that, the coins have to be kept for a long period to build up the right amount of Nen, unlike how money usually functions. Since the rest is a lot of calculations and giant numbers we don't use in everyday math, I'll summarize. So after about 6 months' time, Zhong's coin should have enough power within them to get him to unlock his Nen power naturally. In other words, instead of forced opening like Killua and Gon did, it would be a painless method to acquire Nen, as long as he's patient. And that's also assuming he survives, with how the contest is going. The part Kurapika doesn't say out loud is that it's risk-free to Zhong, but his guardian beast would need something in return, likely relying on the loyalty of those around Zhong to be manipulated into this agreement. Once again, we're reminded that it means Zhong gains the most rewards if he becomes king, and I suppose telling his guard/followers that he'll reward him when he does could be enough to ensure they remain loyal. But Kurapika's no fool, so he knows not to mention the coercion part out loud. Not to mention, there's also one person who hasn't revealed their coin that they received on the very first day. Koven Toba, Benjamin's guard, watches and listens intently near them, kind of creepily, I might add. Considering the time that's passed, and the person who hasn't shown their 10 coin, they're probably doing it on purpose. Not only because they know what it means, but they're trying to keep Zhong in the dark so he can't figure out the full extent of his Nen Beast's power. Who else could it be than someone working for another prince? With the records available to know exactly who's hiding their card, Kurapika intends to use that information as leverage if they find out he's keeping information to himself too. Gotta have insurance for everything on this boat. Zhong thanks Kurapika and is told to keep a few coins just in case it could change how they function. And he hands Kurapika back the one he had before. This is clearly a means to ensure that Kurapika stays on his side. The problem is that Zhang only ever says half of what he means, but thankfully we're privy to the deeper meaning behind his fake civil behavior. His attitude in terms of believing himself better than Kurapika and only taking information because of the connection to Prince Wobble starts to show us his true colors. And he asks about Kurapika's Nen classes resuming, as if he's concerned for him, when we know he's not. It's just so calculated. Plus, we can't forget that he's linked to the ZU Mafia family, which means that he and the other princes who have Mafia connections are doing a balancing act currently. One move can change all that and cause chaos to erupt in the lower tiers. But Benjamin's the one who could get the most out of a mistake like that, since he can call martial law and take over the ship whenever he thinks it's necessary. With that being a risk for 3 of the princes, they wouldn't start conflict for no reason, risking them all in the process. That also means that it's more likely Benjamin himself could create the reason for him to enact martial law, which could then give him the advantage. But to do that, he'd have to either fake a prince's death, one who works with a mafia family, or straight up kill them for real. This is where the death flags come in for Zhoniin, Lazarus, and Zhang. My bet is on Zhang because of how long his Nen ability from his guardian beast needs to fully form, compared to the rest. Plus, Zhoniin is out here breaking Nen records, so I'm not too worried about his survival. Kurapika has a big decision to make, which room to stay in with Prince Wobble. In 1003, Benjamin is keeping a close eye with his guard. In 1004, there's a guard for each prince, but it also works in his favor. And we still have no idea who the mystery killer is, so everywhere could be a gamble. But who cares about that right now? Leorio and Cheadle have returned. They're of course trying to treat Halkenberg, who we knew last time was at death's door. Apparently, Balsamico won't wake up so long as he doesn't fall asleep. So the dying Halkenberg will stay unconscious. All he has to do to complete his death is to get his mom to refuse an autopsy, so it's considered an unknown cause. By the way, I'd like to mention that people have started calling Balsamico's body inhabited by Halkenberg Balkenberg, so it's clear who's in control. Balkenberg tells Benjamin how Halkenberg's doing, and that his mission should be done in 12 hours or less, but it will only work out if the Hunter Association doesn't start investigating. And in case you're wondering what happens when Balkenberg needs to sleep, because, he will at some point, the moment he wakes up, the person who was affected by the ability will be put back into a coma. And then we finally get details on Halkenberg's ability. So it swaps souls, but also gives priority to him and his followers, which I forgot to mention there were 12 of, just like Jesus and his disciples. To be honest, there's a lot of aspects he hasn't tested yet, and he's doing on the spot with this Halkenberg plan. Not only does he not know if he can win with just his soul and not his original body as the prince, but he can't be sure what happens to the other person's soul when the bodies they're swapped into dies. He's taking big risks to try and win this contest, but then again, he did try to unalive himself not too long ago. Plus, he seems to be wanting to take over another prince's body so that he can win like that, since he knows that Balsamico will return to his body and be able to take control of it if he doesn't poison him beforehand. Meanwhile, Salkov's having 5 panic attacks because Zhoniin is improving like crazy, and there's no sign of slowing down, even though he complained that it's taking him longer to improve than before. He wants to work on his Zetsu technique until he can get to under a second, and for him, 2 weeks is a long time to accomplish that. I wonder how he'd react if something just didn't come easy to him in the future. His view of what he can do and how much time it should take is out of the norm. And Salkov is terrified, knowing that he's supposed to spar with him eventually. It's decided that the next round of Nen lessons begins tomorrow morning. Oh boy. Prince Camilla's guard is joining, and the rest are the same as before. The problem is that plan to take out Prince Wobble. Thankfully, they all suspect Camilla has bad intentions, which is why her guard is joining now, and didn't in the first round. So Kurapika quickly asks Bill and Shimanu to put Prince Wobble's safety as their top priority, just in case his instinct is right. Balkenberg conveys the final wishes for his dying body to Benjamin, an announcement, a send-off from his supporters, and a private funeral. He agrees to it all and even wants to avoid angering them. Plus, he's dropping his lawsuits against Halkenberg. What a generous guy. He does insist that Valkenburg treat them all respectfully, and that seems to make Valkenburg kind of touched by Benjamin's decisions. The announcement is done, and anyone who wants to see him off can go to a staircase leading to Tier 1. But the Phantom Troop members are watching too, and seeing as Valkenburg isn't connected to any mafia, they immediately don't care. Instead, they're focused on getting to Hail Lee's hideout. You know, that other crazy person who thinks she's Jesus? Anyway, Nobunaga wants to confirm something, and Phaeton seems to think that there's no point because they're just going to kill them all. But I think this might be critical for their upcoming fight. Phaeton might regret not following Nobunaga's instincts. But anyway, we're definitely headed to some intense conflicts, and I can't wait to see who survives. R.I.P. to Valkenburg. But now is the era of Valkenburg. Let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments, guys. And if you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you guys haven't already. I'm going to be covering Hunter x Hunter from now on. Even after the hiatuses, I will continue to cover it. So subscribe if you want a consistent reviewer for the series, guys. And have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.